Welcome back to another of Deely's Dilemmas. It's been a while since we have run one of these. Today we're looking at how you would structure your training week for a GAA club or team. So looking at the microcycle, the GPS loadings, what days you train, whether Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday or a different schedule than that. Our head of performance, Ross Bennett, who's head of integrated performance at Queen's Park Rangers Football Club, is going to take a look at this for us. We have a message up on the DSS Coaching WhatsApp group to get a bit of discussion with all our members, and we'll take it from there. The sun is shining here in London, the tent is up, time for the kids' swimming pool soon, and it's time to have a proper discussion about structuring your training week. Okay, speak soon.
Hey everybody, welcome to this, extended episode of Deely Talk Science or Deely Dilemmas. Today I've come a little bit more formalised with a presentation reporting back to Ciaran's question he had earlier. So we'll be going through different training weeks and how to prepare your players based on where the game is during that microcycle. Okay, main thing is I think really important you have a mission statement that runs throughout your club or your academy or wherever you think is appropriate. The mission statement I put in here, for example, is prepare our players for the physical demands of sport. Not only just the acute match, which is really important, we prepare them for, but also season availability. So that means that you prepare them for if you need to play 2 games in really close succession. We have it in football that I work in a lot of the time. Or if you have to prepare them for dual code and they have to do a game on a Friday night and then they have to play again on a Monday night or Tuesday night. So it's really important that players are prepared to handle that so they can participate in as many games as possible, but also be optimally prepared for that. So that was our mission statement. We then just click on, I'm going to move my mouse out of the way. So it's really important that you have really, really solid principles that feed into a philosophy. So all of my periodization, there's not necessarily the exact right way to do it. I'm going to go through a few different options. But for me, I have some really, really key principles to allow that mission statement to happen. So allow 2 days post-match for recovery. So I always allow 2 days post-match recovery, whether that means they're off for 2 days, which I've recently done in the football microcycle, or it means that the +2 is very, very light to enable that the starters can recover well. Okay. You then have your training zone. So your match day -4 and your match day -3, they're your big, big training days. Okay. So they're what's going to prepare you for the training or the game coming up, but also going to replicate a 2-game week if you get that load in right. And I'll come on to that in a minute. General principles to keep our high days high and our low days low. So making sure when we're working hard, we're actually doing hard stuff. We're not going anywhere in the middle, just sitting at amber days constantly. You'll get training monotony and you'll never overload. So you won't stress the body, but you also won't recover. But when you're doing a low day, really important that you have a low day, you recover. It's not there for a physical output. It's probably a tactical session. It could be a recovery session. You make sure you recover from that stress. So on our high days, we want to get 80% of our match values across all metrics. On extensive numbers, we actually want to get more than that. So we want to get up to 100% and tick off high speed running, very high speed running. And as you can come on to the next point, at least 1 sprint exposure, which are typically going to get in a game, 1 to 2 exposures on that tough training day. Match day -2 and match day -1 then is then used for tactical prep. Again, keeping your low days low, making sure you recover from the stress, and then you're ready, optimally tapered and ready to perform at whenever the game is, but typically at the weekend for me. You need to ensure there's some differentiation across the week of starters versus non-starters. If especially you're in on a +1 or a +2, that's probably the only benefit you get from coming in or training on a +1 or +2 to enable the non-starters to really get a good loading session for those that didn't play in the game. All right. I put one of the principles here: every 3 weeks, ensure player plays a full match. If you've got players who are on the fringe and don't play regularly, really important that you find a reserve game or maybe an underage game if they're still eligible for a youth team player to actually get match minutes within that 3-week cycle. Nothing you do in training can really replicate them coming on to play the game at that intensity with that intention. And then I've just put something underneath, maybe a typical Gaelic microcycle of Tuesday, Friday, and then a game Sunday does not provide the right weekly structure because you're coming in on a +2 and then you're training again on a -2. So there's no appropriate day really to really prepare the players and get them ready for that, for the demands of the game. Just a reference, so match day reference. So if it's M+2, 2 days post, match day +2, you'll see how that's how I go through all the days of the week. Red is a high loaded session. So as we said, our high day is high, 80% minimum of match load, potentially more than that extensively. If you see an amber session in there, it's normally an intensive type session, or it could be a -2, where it's a little bit of a mixed fire session. And if you see a green session in there, it's typically either 2 games post or 2 games prior, depending on the microcycle, and things are going to be based around tactical prep. Moderate loading in my world would be a -4. The high loading would be a -3, and then low loading then would be -2 and -1. But we'll come on to different examples in a minute. In terms of different gym like outputs, we've got bilateral, unilateral, compound, high force. For strength, we've got speed strength exercises where we're more speed based and lower weight and plyometric for our power. And then we've got what I call robustness, which is isolated exercise used to build capacity. So if you're doing anything that isolates a certain muscle, i.e. Nordic, some variations of RDLs, calf raises, Copenhagen's for adaptive, really specific isolation that's going to create structural fatigue for the players. And that's important to note when you place that throughout the week. So here we go. Option A, different options now. If you play your games on a Sunday, my recommendation is that you get on the grass, team training on a Wednesday and Friday. That allows your Wednesday session to become that really, really tough session. And it allows that Friday then to become -2 session and really taper into the game. It allows gym sessions on a +2 off pitch and a really big gym session on Thursday -3, or you can do it Wednesday post session if that's appropriate and logistics allow for your club. Recovery is then bookmarked Monday. Tuesday will be a recovery for most of it. There'll be an upper body gym session. And then the day before a game, you're really creating freshness going into that game. I put some general markers of what I would usually go for GPS wise. So percentage of each metric, distance, type of running, our extensive markers, our axial decel, and what percentage of max speed. And that's in relation to the individual player and what they would output in a game. All right. So 80% of that individual player's output, we normally use average plus standard deviation. So not just the average, we cover off the standard deviation, which covers off 80% of games. But it's individualized. So we need to make sure we have game data for each individual. If you haven't, then you have positional data but for that team. In terms of content then, because I'll fly through the different options, but content on a -4 would be like last Friday games, play a lot of last Friday games, 15v15, or if you haven't got that, 12v12 on a big pitch, big space, get some tactical work in, but let the ball roll, let it play, align some tactical situations, but again, make it a physical thing. And you may touch upon some full Friday games to go alongside that. You're definitely going to need to sprint in a sprint type warm up and get some practices that allow some high speed running, hopefully through the game itself. And then in the -2, as you can see there, patterns, phaser play, game plan, but it's very stop-start. Coach your team. Where do you want players? Don't let the ball roll. Don't allow players to get too many opportunities to sprint maximally and accumulate high speed. Try and keep the volume low, cap it at around 30 to 40% distance. Club option B then, if you play on a Saturday, I'm proposing then you just do exactly the same, but you just move it to a Tuesday and a Thursday. So exactly the same microcycle, and you bookmark recovery away from the training ground, either side of the game. Everything else stays the same, RE loadings and hyper session. I've then come on to some advanced options. So if you then want to get your players into the training ground, if maybe more county level to train 3 days a week, and then play a game as well. This is a certain proposal. If you play on a Sunday, you still allow the Monday, Tuesday recovery. You then have 2 loading sessions, so Wednesday, Thursday, to really load. The Wednesday being that moderate session we came to in the key where you have intensive type stuff. So distance around 50% of game. We're not looking for expensive numbers, but we're looking for quite good intensive numbers or density of small sided games. You could do some like principal possessions, some small sided games, some unit work. But again, it's not your high loading day, but it's another opportunity to impact your players and make them better, but physically work them in smaller spaces. And then you'd split the gym session on that scenario with strength and power based on the Wednesday, some more compound bilateral stuff if you remember the key, and maybe some more speed strength. And then on Thursday you have your big high loading day. So last Friday games, really let the ball roll, and your gym session becomes your isolated work, the structural integrity we call it. hamstring, adductor, calf, maybe some specific work for individuals in there. And then Saturday, this is really important if you're going to come and do this model, that you come in on a -1, that you literally do a really low loading session. So it's even lower than the -2 that we had on the other options. And I put in a bit of activation, so a few boxes just to get the feel and people moving, some walkthroughs, some set pieces. Do not let the ball roll. Make it really clear it's a tactical game leading into the game. And then advanced option D, I've just put in then a +2 training session. So recovery just 1 day away, +2 they come in. This is where we spoke about the differentiation of the starters and the non-starters. The non-starters getting a really good loading session like the -4 session on the previous. So intensive type work, don't need to sprint because we can do that on top ups post game and we can do that on our Wednesday session. But then everybody completes some upper body type work on that day, whether you're doing recovery for starters. Now it's up to you whether you get starters on the pitch and do like really low level warm ups and technical work and maybe some unit type work, but really, really low level on pitch recovery. Or if you have players, and this is where I think you individualize more, players who have got high injury risk or they've had high injury rates, maybe older type players that need a little bit of a deload, you take them off the pitch and just get them doing some mobility work in the gym, depending on your facilities. Wednesday's then your high loading day where you have strength, power, and robustness, so your big lower limb type session. Thursday we recover and respect that session. Friday you go back into your normal pattern as a -2. Okay, so that's it from me. Let me stop sharing here. Thank you. So just some key things just to wrap up. There's different ways to do it, obviously, but for me, your principles are you have your 2 days post game, which are typically your recovery, especially from your starters. Your 2 days then, which you have your acquisition training days where you can really load and you want to get a big loading session during that day. So 80% plus of all metrics in one session. That's not only going to prepare you for the game at the weekend or whenever the game is, but also it's going to prepare you for being able to play multiple games through the week. And that's what I talk about, preparing you for demands of the game. And then the 2 days leading into the game is all about recovery and taper. -2, -1. Make sure you don't stress the body. You allow the body to recover from the -4, -3, and you really taper into the game. And your gym stuff goes alongside that as well to make sure it's appropriate. The right units are in there to make sure that you recover for the game. Okay. Hope that's answered some questions that Keir put up earlier. Sorry, it's a little bit long. I tried to fly through it. Hope everyone's well. We'll speak soon.